Good afternoon, everybody. We will go ahead and call this regular meeting of the Washoe County School District Board of Trustees to order. We have everyone here present. We do have our clerk who is not feeling well, but she is on the phone. In her absence, our clearly unofficially official substitute clerk will do roll call for us, if you would please, Trustee Rosenberg.
Veronica Franco. On the phone. Thank you. Ryan Gonda.
Here.
John Mayer.
Here.
Diane Nicolette.
Here.
Howard Rosenberg is here. Lisa Ruggiero.
I'm here.
Angela Taylor.
I am here too.
And our student Katie Deutsch.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Trustee Rosenberg. We'll stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. And for today, I'm going to ask the newly elected member of the state of Nevada Board of Education, Mr. David Carter, if you would please lead us in the pledge, sir.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, I want short boots today. Thank you very much, Mr. Carter. We're so glad to have you here. We know we'll hear from you in public comment. And that being said, JJ, what public comment do we have to begin?
David Carter.
We're going to get your microphone there on.
There.
All right. Thank you.
David Carter for the record. And if I go over a few seconds, please forgive me, but I wanted to introduce myself to the board and to the public. David Carter, representing the State Board of Education, District 2. My term will begin in January. Elected to represent District 2, which is the 11 northern counties of Nevada. It excludes the Yerington section of Lyon County and White Pine County. So everyone else up in north is who I'm representing. I'm going to be attempting to visit all of the boards, even though that isn't in my job description, probably once every 6 months, especially since many of you like to visit on Tuesday, and especially the 2nd and 4th, which makes it kind of fun to visit all of them at the same time. My goal is to continue to improve education in Nevada. I bring 30 plus years of accounting experience, 25 in school districts, mostly in California. And so I know budgets, I know financing, all sorts of items for school districts. And so I'm hoping to bring that experience to the state board and help alleviate the concerns that you may have at the board level, the local board level. I think that there are too many administrative regulations at the state and federal level. I will be looking to see if we can drop some of those and make it easier to still fund and promote good education in the school districts. And I am going to do my best to support all the 11 school districts as well as the other 6 in the state to be able to make this a great state again, to bring us up from, depending on what you look at, 49 to 51, up higher during my tenure in the 4 years. And I would thank you all, and if anybody would like to contact me, I'm keeping my campaign email address open. It's Carter, the number 4, NVDOE @gmail.com. And with that, I'll say thank you very much for the opportunity to meet with you.
Thank you, Mr. Carter, and thank you for being here, and congratulations on your election. Any other public comment at this time, JJ?
Elise Weathers.
Actually, it's Weatherly.
Weatherly.
Weatherly. Welcome, Ms. Weatherly. Right there, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Elise Weatherly. I wanted to come here today because I understand that there's a little bit of problems with communication, and so I'm here with questions that you guys can't answer, which is kind of sad because that means that we're not in public debate. But I wanted to ask, is the extra work of clearly communicating information to those who will be affected by a system that will be electronically profiling our children be worth it? Will you take the chance of having our children assessed by a computer rather than allowing their future leaders or employers to exercise discernment in the election interview process? Now, this is my understanding what this data mining is going to be about, to help the children in the future. So as a community, are we allowed to raise the red flag over this program? How do you guys decide what's good and evil, what's right and wrong? What about allowing input from those outside of your circle? Will you do that? Now, this country was founded on a book that's like it's almost illegal for us to say the name of that book. It was the Bible that was from the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And by the way, the only reason I voted for the person that said they would not abandon Israel. So I'm counting on that happening. And it talks a lot about light and exposure, revelation and hiding. Eventually, everything is going to come to light anyway. So I think if we commit right now to investigating what's true, what's right, what's good, getting other people's input into it, then base the decision on the truth, because I think the truth is exceedingly important, and that people are allowed, like leaders and employers are supposed to allowed to have discernment when they hire people, when they elect people. We should be allowed discernment in what we're going to do with our kids, how we're going to treat them. Are we going to treat them individually? Are we going to treat them as a group? A lot of the things are based on money. So what is our motive with this thing? Is it to get somebody some money, bottom line money? That's not good. Is it trying to automate assessment of human beings? We're individuals, we're unique, we're snowflakes. Let's don't put a programming system in place that will kind of like try to group everybody. So now we have a choice, I think you guys do, of either communicating or hiding the truth. And our current government has been really good about hiding the truth. And I think that things are starting to come out into the open. So would you consider, please, just bringing more outsiders, especially when our kids are going to be affected by this whole thing in the future? Let them know the truth of the matter. Let them have a voice in the matter. Provide actual, factual information, which includes purported benefits and detriments. There could be both. Don't change the rules, please, to make it easier to slide by with what you guys want to do or have done for whatever reasons, so that somebody here gets their own way. If we are a community, then we have to do that. By the way, the only safe place to hide, you can't say his name is public, so I'll say it in Hebrew, Yeshua HaMashiach. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Weatherly. I see another public comment card, JJ.
John Ippolito.
Mr. Ippolito, welcome. You know the routine, sir?
I think I finally do. I just wanted to quickly mention this cloud, storing our children's data in the cloud. And I, for one, publicly do not want my children's data stored in the cloud. There's way too many problems with that. I've tried to email you guys. I've been back and forth with David Lysick, I think his name is. I do not want my children's data stored in the cloud. And we're talking about their CUME file, their birth certificate, any legal documents, any external transcripts, internal transcripts. So far, the answer from the district has been no. I don't have a choice. I hope you would reconsider that and allow parents to keep their children's data out of the cloud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ippolito.
I have no more cards at this time.
Okay, thank you, JJ. Seeing no more public comment cards, then I will entertain the motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda as presented. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Aye.
Oh, that's an aye, sorry. Right, the motion is carried. Let the record show it is unanimous. Sorry, Trustee Franco, I'll give you time to vote in the future. I just forgot you were there. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Board reports. Let's see. Let's start with Mr. Mayor, Vice President Mayor. Board reports, sir?
Well, this has been an eventful week with our state convention of school boards, and I want to congratulate Dennis Myers of the News and Review for being awarded the Outstanding Media Person for Written Media. I think he well deserves it, and it's a great honor that he got selected for that. Another thing that I wanted to say is some of these schools have really been excelling in sports. I mentioned the soccer teams of Galena and Sparks High, and we also have state champions in cross country, several other things, and I would hope that one of our spotlights on success will have these state championship teams come to our spotlight and get recognized. Other than that, everything's been good.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Rosenberg.
I'll pass.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Franco?
I will pass.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gonda?
The only thing that I would share is when I was visiting with the principal at Spanish Springs High School, Tammy Hart, she informed me that their Spanish Springs High School band has been doing very well and has won some competitions recently. And so I wanted to congratulate those students on their win, and also Reed High School, I believe, has done very well this year as well. So I just wanted to publicly congratulate them on their hard work.
Thank you, Trustee Gonda. We'll jump right across to our student rep, Katie.
So last Tuesday we had a student advisory board meeting, and it was a great meeting. We discussed a lot of different things, like the new student voice policy, education specifications, and the passage of WC1. And it was really interesting just seeing the students' input in all of those different presentations. And I think that they gave some really good insight, especially on the student voice policy. And then we got into our subcommittees again and did some work for what we're planning on doing for next semester.
Outstanding. We have an addition here to that.
Yeah,
Trustee Mayor?
I was at that meeting, and I've been at all of them since the inception, but I think this year we really got some go-getters in there. And I just really loved to sit and watch them discuss back and forth and everything. And they're just representatives of all the high schools, 2 from each high school, and they just do a magnificent job with the student voice. And then everywhere I go, I was at the Veterans Parade, and about a couple of your cohorts on your committee were there in uniform and looked sharp. And I just got to say, you are a great leader. You're organized, and you've got this attendance. I've never seen it as well attended as you're getting it. So congratulations on what you're doing for the students.
That's outstanding. Thank you, Katie. Dr. Dye.
I'll just ditto your fabulosity. So I had the pleasure of attending the Nevada Association of School Boards conference, dynamic, and it was really a pleasure being there with so many colleagues, school board members. It really was very interesting, and I learned a lot. Things that I can take with me, even to other boards that I serve on. Very good information, enlightening. I had the privilege of attending the committee meeting and learned about what's going on in other school districts very specifically. And then I also had the pleasure of presenting to conferees the impact of early learning on student success. And I will tell you that it was, I'm just going to say that I felt very welcome, and the information was well received people were engaged and they were very, I don't know, just polite and respectful. And if they weren't interested, they looked interested. And so that was very nice and very heartwarming. So it was a privilege to really share information on something that's very passionate to me, and that's early learning.
I'm going to comment about that.
Okay, I was too, so you go ahead.
Oh.
No, take it, take it.
You know, we go to a lot of conferences and everything, but when one of ours gives a presentation in front of the whole audience, and we don't break up into individual little rooms, and is as well received as Dr. Diane Nicolette was, I feel that it's another jewel in Washoe County School District's crown. She did an outstanding job, and I received good comments from everybody. So, and it's hard to stand up there. There's 107 board members and all the superintendents and other people there and everything, and it's hard to be interesting and dynamic, but she did, and I want to congratulate her on her presentation.
Interesting and dynamic. And plus she put us to work. We were passing out handouts and materials, and there was homework, and look, I needed a nap after I handed out your materials, but you gave us candy though.
Yes, I did.
So chocolate always helps. So thank you. You represented us well. Thank you. Trustee Rosario.
Thank you, President Taylor. Good afternoon, everyone, and I hope everyone had a lovely family holiday. I know I did, and I talked with Howard. He did. Mr. Mayor, I think he did. I had a little message with Tracy and the rest of the trustees and Dr. Nicolette. So it's always nice for the trustees to touch base and wish each other well during the holiday season. It's one of my favorite things. I too attended the state school board conference, and I have to say the highlight of it was learning about the impact on early childhood and its future and the importance when it comes to learning for our kids and our children's future. And it's such an honor to have someone with such expertise sitting right here on our school board. So I want to congratulate Dr. Nicolette for the tremendous job. I agree with President Taylor. I am still exhausted from handing out all of her handouts. But I wanted to thank you and give you my sincerest compliment. Because of the holiday, it was a kind of a quiet week for some trustees, but I had the honor of meeting with our communications team, with Irene and her fabulous team, as a follow-up to the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission's kind of, is it a communications strategy, outreach strategy, working with Irene and her expertise and her team's expertise. How do we develop our commission members as ambassadors for the Board of Trustees and the superintendent and the school district? And so we did some great brainstorming, which we'll be bringing to the commission hopefully in December, JJ. A little bit of a draft.
Soon.
And I think it's really exciting because really we will be the eyes and ears for the Board of Trustees and the superintendent, and serve as that connection between parents and the community to the school district. And so I'm really excited, and I think the commission members are very excited too. So we hope we can be of great service to the school district, because we anticipate in February, if I'm correct, Chief of Staff, that the results from our district-wide safety audit will come before the commission. I anticipate we'll do a presentation or present the results to the Board of Trustees And then I think what will happen is that we'll go back as a commission, maybe do a work session and come up with some recommendations and then head back to the Board of Trustees with some recommendations. So we're really looking forward to that. And we've been laying the foundation over the past year, educating the commission members on different aspects of the school district and safety and wellness for our students. So I think they're well prepared to receive the results of the audit, and I think this is going to be very important work of the school district. And thank you all for your support, because we could not have done this without you. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ruggiero. I'll just be quick. Again, we appreciated Dr. Diane's presentation at the state conference. Also, the day before was orientation for new trustees, and 3 of our 4 new trustees, one was in Hawaii, and I think that's just a poor excuse, but, you know, we'll be making a note of that for a future. With Scott and his family were in Hawaii, but the other 3 new trustees were there at the orientation, all 3, so it was really, really good. And then they said, Mr. Rombardo did a presentation on that day for open meeting law. We can't rave about that because we aren't new trustees, we weren't there. But the word on the street was that actually it was really, really informative. And so they were very glad that they were there, very, very informative. So thank you for representing us well. We don't want to leave you out of the love, but, we just weren't there. But that's the rumor mill. So we really appreciate that. And then just finally, for me, I had a chance to really meet and have coffee with Mr. Frank Woodbeck. He is the executive director of the Nevada College Collaborative with INCHE. Just talking about connections and collaborations with the Nevada System of Higher Education and the Washoe County School District. And he's also chair of the board for JAG Nevada. And I know Superintendent Davis sits on that board, that statewide board. But it was good just to connect with him while he was in town and just share, ideas and thoughts for how we continue to build opportunities for our students as they graduate and make decisions, career-based decisions for the most part. So, and then I had a great Thanksgiving with my family. I hope you all did too. Sue Davis.
Thank you. While you guys were at Nevada School Board, Tiffany Young and I had an opportunity to represent the district at the National Association of Black Educators, and we talked about the work we're doing in our district around equity and deep equity training and cultural responsive practices, and really the work the board did around the strategic plan and how that applies to many of our various initiatives, and it turned out quite well, and we were invited to present again. Katie, so I want to say that I know you do a lot of hard work, and you should be proud to know that I was at North Valleys and the principal was talking about the student advisory board representatives coming back talking about education specs for the bathroom. And so at the student advisory board, there was a rich dialogue around bathrooms and what they look like. And thank you to Tammy Zimmerman from Capitals that came out and presented to the students as we talk about the value of student voice. And so they looked at those ed specs, but it actually got back to the principal. It was really nice to see the transfer of the information here. So kudos to you. And then I want to thank John for keeping me updated on how many points my nephew scored at every game and stats when I couldn't watch a game.
That's right. He's doing great.
Okay, clearly Thanksgiving week, but still got a few things in. Next on our agenda, the consent agenda items. All these listed are considered routine, and I will entertain a motion to approve unless one of my colleagues would like to remove an item from the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second. It has been moved and approved that the Board of Trustees accepts the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I waited for you this time. Any opposition? The motion is carried, and let the record show that it is unanimous. Thanks, staff, for their work on those items. Next, as I see our CFO coming in right on time, this is will be for our Resolution directing that notice be given to the Oversight Panel for School Facilities regarding the proposed issuance of up to $70 million in general obligation bonds, authorizing officers of the district to take other actions necessary to complete the issuance, and directing that notice be given to the Debt Management Commission regarding this proposed issuance and related matters. This is for a possible action. Again, before us is Mr. Tom Zazinski, who is our CFO.
Thank you, President Taylor, and members of the board, Superintendent Davis, student representative. For the record, Tom Zazinski, Chief Financial Officer. And as President Taylor said, this is a resolution to authorize the issuance up to $70 million of general obligation bonds, whereby we will now be going to the Oversight Panel and the Debt Management Commission. More specifically, we will be going to the Debt Management Commission on December 9th, and then follow that up with a meeting with the Oversight Panel on December 15th. This is for the to finance the acquisition, construction, improvement, and equipping of school facilities. The actual projects will be brought back to you. Pete Etchart and Joe Gabika are working with the Capital Funding Protection Committee. That group is also meeting on December 15th. They will be bringing projects to you for approval, I believe, on December 20th. And then I will come back to you on January 10th with the completion of our meetings with DMC and Oversight to get approval to go ahead and move forward with this issuance of $70 million of bonds, which will be done in probably two series. The first series being done probably with funds coming in on March 7th, and then we'll see when the needs for the second issuance of the $70 million is needed, and then we'll do that probably within an 18-month time frame for both issuances. So with that, I'll stop and entertain any questions that you may have.
Any questions? And thank you for the detail that was provided in our materials as well. That answered all of my questions.
Great job.
Thank you.
I guess just maybe for clarification, maybe public record.
Sure.
The first issuance should be what dollar amount?
We're looking at probably in between $50 and $60 million. This money will help prime the engine and get things going with the projects. These are the rollover bonds, so we haven't got the ability to issue the new sales tax bonds through WC1 just yet. So, but these will be rollover bonds, and so Pete and Joe will be working with the Funding Protection Committee to identify projects, and it's those projects that'll help me determine how much exactly we need to issue. So, but we're kind of thinking in the neighborhood of $50 to $60 million at this point.
Thank you, Tom.
You bet.
And thank you for clarifying that these are not new monies. These are the rollover monies.
Correct.
That we know came out of the last legislative session. I think that's important for the public as well. Any other discussion? No. Can we entertain the motion at this time?
I move that the Board of Trustees adopts the resolution to notify the Oversight Panel for School Facilities and the Debt Management Commission on the proposed issuance of up to $70 million in general obligation bonds.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? The motion is carried, and again, let the record show that it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be able to get things going and moving, so we appreciate that. Appreciate your work.
President Taylor, before we move on, I think it would be good if we acknowledged that we have a special guest in the audience from Truckee Meadows Community College, the president.
Oh, we do? Oh, there she, oh, I didn't even see you.
I snuck in.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you very much for being here. It's an honor to have you attend our meeting.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Trustee Rosario. I didn't even see you sneaking in. I was like, who's here? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5. These are presentation, discussion, and so on. First, agenda item 5.01. This is update on the additional services provided by the Early Childhood Education Program, which is designed to provide high-quality pre-K instruction to all early childhood education students within the district, since aligning with the Special Education Department under the Office of Student Services. This is for information and discussion. And we see Mr. Frank Salvaggio, who is our EDS Student Services, Tina Springmeyer, Director of Child and Family Services, and Crystal Doyle, who is a parent. Thank you so much. It's always special when we get parents to come here to be with us. So thank you very much.
thank you.
The floor is yours.
President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, and members of the board. My name is Frank Salvaggio, and I'm the Executive Director of Student Services. Next to me, or two over, is Tina Springmeyer. Tina is our Director of Child and Family Services, and as you mentioned, also joining us today is one of our wonderful early childhood parents, Crystal Doyle. Today, we would like to provide you an update on the status of early childhood education in Washoe County School District. As I know you are keenly aware, as a district, we have been charged by Superintendent Davis and the trustees to have 90% of our students graduating with a standard diploma or above by 2020. It is a vision that is certainly attainable if the right systems are established to ensure our students succeed. It goes without saying that in order to sustain 90% graduation rates, we must have in place a robust and aligned pre-kindergarten through third grade strategy that results in our students leaving third grade at grade level in reading and math, as well as social emotional competency. Research tells us that if students are not at grade level leaving third grade, that the results will be academic difficulty throughout their educational career. So the stakes are really high. Pre-kindergarten has a singular focus, which is to make sure the children under our care leave our early childhood programs kindergarten ready and as defined by the Nevada pre-kindergarten standards. We are the first stop for early learning of these children, and the stakes, as I mentioned earlier, are really high for us to make sure we are successful at what we do. And so with that, we want you to know how excited we are to be on this venture of working with kindergarten first, second and third grade, as well as our team in helping our children be successful in Washoe County School District. I do want to mention just briefly, I want to thank Dr. McNeil, who has been a great visionary for early childhood in our district, and she needs to be recognized for that, as well as our Chief Student Services Officer, Dr. Byron Green, who has been tremendously supportive of some of the things we've been trying to do. At this point, what we want to do is talk about some of the changes we've made and where we're going forward from this point.
Good afternoon, President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, and other board members. For the record, I'm Tina Springmeyer, the Director of Child and Family Services. It's my pleasure to talk a little bit more detail about the structure. As you know, we went through a reorganization of early childhood last year, so I'm going to give you more information about what that looks like and how we're moving ahead. Do you want to be my slide? Thank you. Oh, thank you. Okay, so the Child and Family Services still is comprised of early childhood education, and that also includes our infant toddler programs for our teen parents at Hug High School, Worcester High School, and also we partner with the School of Peace at Washoe. I'm sorry, Innovations. Apologize about that. And then we also have the Nevada Registry and Nevada Pre-K Standards and the Early Learning Guidelines. And those two programs are statewide programs that provide support and resources for all of our early childhood community and professionals. Our department is still really takes our guidance from Initiative 1.54. So we're really looking at ways that we can support our earliest learner and providing more opportunities for that and making sure that we're serving those students who are most at risk. So making sure that we have spots available in our programs for our CIT students and serving most of our programs are within our Title I schools. So our most at-risk families can attend those programs. So you can see by the structure of this org chart, and I apologize because I can't even read the org chart behind you, but you can see how we've changed a little of our structure. So we are under the guidance of Dr. Green and Mr. Savaggio, and then myself, but you can see how we've broken early childhood into regions. And so these regions were well thought out in regards to where the programs were held. And our programs, we have a leadership team for early childhood now that encompasses our Nevada Registry program, the Nevada Pre-K Standards program, and then we have we have two implementation specialists who are specialists in special education, and then two coordinators who provide guidance for general education. But we all work consecutively together to provide more support for our principals, our teachers, and our schools in regards to early childhood education. So you can see that we had a lot of conversation regarding our regions, but you can see that they are divided by regions and not by zones, and that's really because our classrooms are not in every school site. So we put a lot of thought into how we were serving our students and what was best for our program needs. So here's a better view of the regions and how they're set up. And then and you can see that over each region I'll have 2 team leads, but myself included. And then we bring all of these people together, all of our teachers and support staff together for our professional development. So we were thrilled to have that opportunity recently this month on our election day to have our certified teachers come together, and then we also provided professional development for all of our ESPs.
So we want to provide you a current status of the program. Before I mention these things that are written on the slide, I think it's important to understand context regarding early childhood in Washoe County. About 90% of our students that would be early childhood eligible are being either served in a community-based program or at home. So about 10% of the students receiving early childhood services are in Washoe County School District. So I think it's important to know that we've got to have partnerships with our community agencies and with many other folks to bring them together, including parents, and most importantly parents, to make sure we're in collaboration, because 90% of those kids are going to enter kindergarten in our schools, and we don't know right now if they're kindergarten ready or not. And that's a critical thing that we have to solve, and we want to partner to help make that happen. So currently, our program status, we have 1,500 students enrolled in our ECE programs, early childhood education programs right now, 93 classrooms throughout WCSD. And we want to just mention that we've had no way to measure regarding how general education, early childhood students, and special ed students were doing, because we use different assessments for them. This year we changed that all students are going to be using the Bergance assessment to align with Read by 3 and the assessments that they're using. So therefore we could have accurate data to be able to determine how are our kids doing in all our programs. And then finally, we have aligned professional development. I've been to both our aides and assistant training, to all the early childhood training that's going on. And I got to tell you, it is some of the best training we're doing in the district right now. It is really great what Tina has been able to put together with her staff. And then for program goals and outcomes, I've mentioned it over and over again, we want our kids kindergarten ready. The stakes are just too high for them not to leave our programs ready to learn in kindergarten. Secondly, to provide high quality early childhood instruction for all students who are enrolled in our WCS programs, and to ensure that early childhood instruction is aligned to the Nevada pre-K standards.
Sorry. Oops, apologize. So moving ahead this year, we really still have high expectations for this new program, this new department. And number one is having positive communication with all of our schools, making sure that we're supporting all of our principals, making sure we're supporting all of our families, our students, and our teachers. So that's high on our list, especially with our early childhood leadership team. We also think that family engagement is critical. We're thrilled to have one of our parents here today, and making sure that family engagement is provided throughout all of our programs. And I think we learned a lot in our steering committee from our parents who participated, who really wanted to hear more and to be a part of this program, and they were excited about how we were moving ahead. So we are excited to bring them on that journey and provide more for them. And then having high expectations for all of our students in our program, regardless if they're on an IUP or not. All children deserve high expectations and high program quality and high pre-K instruction, and that's important for us. And then most importantly, we know that inclusion really is the best model for our programs, and we are moving to that system, and so we want to provide more of that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Miss Crystal Doyle, who's one of our parents and one of our programs.
Hi, everybody. As Tina said, my name is Crystal Doyle, and I am a parent of a student who attends Catherine Dunn Elementary, and she went through the child find process. She was delayed in her speech, and I just want to say that the whole experience has just been so positive, and her language is just beyond amazing right now, and she's just growing and growing, and I'm just so pleased with how everything has turned out, and I just feel so confident that she is going to be ready for kindergarten, and that's just a great feeling as a parent. So, thank you.
If I may, just to either the Child Find program, will you describe that a little bit?
Sorry, Frank.
So we have a federal responsibility that we have to provide a child find process for really for all our kids in Washoe County School District if we suspect a disability. Child find is over on Rock Boulevard and Mill, and our specific role for them is to really look at kids that are 3 to 5 to determine whether or not they meet criteria for a disability under special education.
Thank you.
So forging ahead, while we have high expectations for our program, we also are realistic that we have some obstacles that we have to face moving ahead. So in order to continue to work on the journey of meeting 1.54 for our strategic plan for our district is really finding highly qualified teachers that can work in early childhood. It's a specialized field, and we know that. So that's a continuing obstacle that we face. And then also expanding our inclusive classrooms. That's our goal to do that, but that's also an obstacle that we need to continue to work on. And then most importantly, about working in collaboration with principals and administrators to help them understand that the importance of early childhood education and what role we play in the K-12 world. And so as we move to a system of B3 or P3, whatever you're used to hearing, we know the importance of having those transitions and having grades aligned and having work aligned and assessments aligned so that we can do what's best for all children. So we know that we've got that, but we're optimistic.
I just want to say one thing about the first bullet that I think you'll love to hear, especially Superintendent Davis. We have been able we have a program over at the Inspire Academy where we have 6 early childhood programs. 2 of those are integrated. We've been able to pull about, how many kids have we pulled out?
7.
7 kids out of a self-contained room, and they are flourishing in an integrated general education room.
From Strategies.
And so we're proving that you can do other programs besides just segregated models, and we are just really excited that that's happening.
That's fantastic. Dr. Dye, she has a question.
Tina, I've known Tina a very long time. It's hard to match her passion, her intelligence, and her hard work. And expanding inclusive classrooms are good for all students. Would you tell everyone a little more about that?
So inclusive classrooms really provide the opportunity for children to be in the same classroom with either special education needs or general education needs, and making sure that instruction is provided for all students. And more importantly, that in a good and inclusive classroom, you can't tell who is maybe on an IEP. Students are all receiving the same services, are all excited about the education they're receiving, and it's really best practice for all children.
And just to say, we also started 5 integrated kindergarten, or 6 this year, integrated kindergarten programs, which has allowed the same thing to happen that we didn't have previously. And thanks to Dr. Green really supporting us and trying to make that occur. And we just met with the principals today. The progress in these programs for all the kids is really, really strong. So that's exciting to hear also. On the final slide there before questions, you can see the scope of our work. I will save you the time to go over each detail of that and just let you know we're actively moving forward on that. So at this point, we'll answer any questions you might have.
The only other question I would have is just, have you, and I know this is the reorg is new in terms of dividing by regions. Are you seeing anything preliminarily that shows that was, I mean, you seem very, very excited about it, Tina, so what makes you so excited about that lineup versus zones?
Well, that's a great question. We actually have had great feedback from our administrators and our teachers that they love the experts coming into the programs, but more importantly, that everybody is there to help them. They feel like they have a lot more support in regards to early childhood. We've had many of our special education teachers come forward and really like to be with our program. Well, they appreciate the expert help, but more importantly, they really appreciate having more support for them as an early childhood teacher. Very often, early childhood programs, there might just be 1 or 2 in a school, where now we have 93 classrooms combined, and they also have the opportunity to network. So we have teachers networking between schools and have joined PLCs together. So we have PLCs with GLAD and our special education, and we have Reggio. So we have our special education teachers joining our Reggio inspired PLCs now. So just having that common conversation and really working on what's best for young children has really fostered a great pride in the work that we're seeing with teachers. And principals appreciate that expertise too, and have come forward saying that they appreciate having somebody. It doesn't matter who we're there to see, we're there to help support all programs, and they do appreciate that.
Yes, Trustee Mayor.
You know, I hear from parents all the time about this program, how wonderful it is. And 63 classrooms, that's quite an amount of classrooms. But is that limited by a cap by the state, or is it just financially we can't afford anymore?
Actually, we have 93 classrooms.
93, I'm sorry.
No, we are mandated to serve students when we identify them, and certainly for the general ed side, it's grant funding. So the more grant funding that we can acquire, the more likely we'd like to be able to serve more students. So it's really just space. That's probably our biggest challenge, like everybody else.
And they get a full range of physical training, like balance beams and things like that, and along with academics, and you have health screening for them and things like that.
Well, I think you mentioned about the importance of play.
We have a well-rounded curriculum that's based on the Nevada Pre-K standards. So we make sure that we target all the domains from social emotional development to physical development and health. And we follow all the district mandates regarding our students and what needs to be required when they enroll in our schools.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Dye.
You can imagine I'm passionate too. So a couple things. First, I don't know if you saw this in the newspaper. I believe it was Sunday. I could wear my glasses. Sunday. Thankful to be included in preschool. I think this was a fabulous article, and Frank, it really points to your insight about collaboration and partnerships, because as you said, 90% of our littlest learners are in other learning type situations, not to judge those, but certainly Washoe County School District has more resources, and we're very blessed to have that, and we utilize them, I think, to our fullest. I was privileged to be able to visit O'Brien Middle School and Sparks Middle School and their ECE programs, and it was absolutely wonderful. And for anybody who might think that little kiddos maybe shouldn't hang around middle schoolers, I would say absolutely wrong, and you couldn't be farther from something beautiful. Those little kids fill their souls, and those middle schoolers fill the little kids' souls. It's just such a wonderful collaboration for everyone, especially the teachers down the halls, sharing information and looking at that continuum of learning. So here's some of my questions, and facilities certainly is a big one, obviously money too. And I will say this, that I hope someday that it won't just be all about grant funding making things happen. And I would like to congratulate our superintendent for making this a priority, knowing that the beginning certainly helps the end, if there is such a thing as an end, and thank you for that. So facilities and those collaborations are wonderful. I have a couple questions as far as the inclusion, the special needs children. What is that percentage? And do they typically come to us through Child Find? And then what other kinds of initiatives or ideas are on your drawing board to create partnerships? Because for me personally, helping my profession, our profession, early care and education in Washoe County, training for teachers is really big.
Do you want to speak to Child Find?
So with regard to the percentage, while there's still more special education programs than there are grant-funded programs, and a lot of that is we're mandated to provide programs for kids with special needs, where grant, the criterias are pretty specific on usually to deal with more families that are in poverty to support their needs. So majority special ed programs. But we're trying to get creative and, as we mentioned, to do more inclusive kind of strategies with the programs. With regard to partnerships, we're just beginning to have those conversations about how we can bring together stakeholders and begin to have these conversations. So Tina and I have talked about who are those stakeholders that we can start bringing together and start talking about what does it mean to be kindergarten ready in Washoe County School District. So that's a big part of our work moving forward. And so we're compiling the list right now, and they're going to be reaching out and asking to get together and have that discussion.
Say that I'm really proud to speak about what we're doing in Washoe County with our youngest learners because, again, Tina et al., because you have some wonderful teachers and other professionals that have made some great things happen, and you have support. Thank you, Deputy. And it's been a long time coming. Yes. This has been a very slow-moving train, and I would have to say that people like Tina et al. Didn't give up because they knew this was a good thing and the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nye. Sue Davis?
I think I'm going to start off with my famous saying of we don't graduate kids in the 12th grade. And we talk about the important things that has to happen for a child to be successful as they matriculate up, and we start the day they walk through our door when they learn letters, sounds, colors, numbers, how to write their name, and all the things that are looks like fun time, but really they're doing some creative learning activities. So kudos to the team. When we talk about continuous school improvement, I think it was just 2 years ago we were separate, and special ed pre-K, early pre-K was on one side of the house and regular ed was on a different side of the house. When we go back and we think about our strategic plan, our goals, and where we are, it's nice to hear this, but we have to go backwards to see how we are moving the pendulum along for kids. And when you talk about best practices, and best practices are good for all kids, whether they have a disability or not, and how the teachers are working in collaboration to be successful. Kudos to the academic side of the house for moving this along in such a way that it is truly becoming one of our more robust programs. And it was great before, but then when we partnered and put it all together and looking at our goals as we look at the work we're doing around special education, I think this is part of what we envisioned when we started this journey. So thank you, team.
Trustee Rosario?
Well, I agree. I agree with Trustee Nicolette, and I agree with Superintendent Davis. The passion was always there, and the care, but we've come so far. This is so exciting. And I've said this before, my mom used to house in her preschool the early childhood program for the school district many years ago. And to see where we've come, and truly it's about value and making it more robust. And I think that comes from our leadership. And I think, Frank, this is a great spot for you to be in. You're a perfect role and partnering with Tina to make this happen, and it's just super exciting. And I look back even starting on this board in 2013, where we were in 2013 to where we are now. I mean, it leaps and bounds, and so this is so great for our kids and our families. So.
And our pre-K kids this year is the class of 2030, right? Right, we're talking about the work we're doing for the kids of 2030. So if you think about perspective and long-lasting, like what we're doing for kids, like we see right now, but when we think about it, this is the graduating class of 2030.
Well, and as we appreciate this work, we look at 90% graduation rate by 2020. We want that to be maintained and further, so when they go see Dr. Karin and her colleagues in higher ed, that they are ready, they are prepared, and that begins with them being ready for kindergarten. So ironically enough, earlier today I was talking to someone about pre-K, about getting their child in pre-K, how important it was to just get them ready for kindergarten. He'll be in kindergarten next year, so ironically enough. Yes, Dr. Dye.
One more thing. I'm very excited about the design that will come for elementary, middle school, and high school inclusive early childhood campuses when we build our new schools. This is going to be fun.
Well, thank you very much for your work. We're excited about the future for our littlest learners. And we do have, just before you leave, we do have something for public comment. Thank you.
Mrs. Martini?
Welcome, Mrs. Martini. You have 3 minutes. Just get that microphone on. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret Martini in Klein Village. I'm sitting here listening to all this about the inclusive learning and et cetera, and we're going to include everybody and include everybody. And I truly think that that's really nice, but there's a large portion of underserved children that has not ever been addressed in all the time I've attended school board meetings. And I'm speaking of the gifted and talented kids. And what I'm hearing now is that you're inclusive in the classroom at the expense of developing these gifted and talented kids. And I've been in the classroom. You want a qualified workforce coming out of our school system, and yet you do not address the important priority in this system of education. When my kids started kindergarten, they could read and write the alphabet and put words together and do simple math. So what do you do with these children? And why, I don't see any gifted and talented programs being discussed, even at early childhood learning. It's all about the other end of the spectrum, and yet, you want a talented workforce coming out of your school, and you don't address the capabilities of these children. The integrated method is a big disservice to those children who have a high scholastic potential. So I'm just saying that, what are going to be the best practices for these kids? I don't hear anything coming out of any of this for the best practices for the kids that have the potential of very, very high academic achievement. And I think that needs to be prioritized in the state of Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martini. Any other public comment, JJ? No? Okay, again, thank you so much for your work, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate it. Okay, next item on the agenda item 5.02. This is presentation and overview of the Washoe County School District Data Privacy and Security Policy, measures to protect student and staff information, compliance with state and federal requirements, including what student data is and why the district collects it and what the district does with it. This is for information only. Long-awaited presentation. Thank you for being here, Chief of Staff David Lazick, Ed DeGragia, who's our Chief IT guy, our Chief Information Officer, and then Dr. Paul Lamarca, Chief School Performance Officer. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, President Taylor, Superintendent Davis, David Lasik, for the record, your Chief of Staff. Also with me, as you mentioned, Ed Gracia, our Chief Information Technology Officer, and Dr. Paul Lamarca, our Chief School Performance Officer. So as you mentioned, we're here to talk about data privacy and security. And basically, this presentation will provide an overview of what student data is, why we collect it, what we do with it. And to start off, basically, the collection and storage of data on students and staff is important. And it's used for a variety of reporting purposes, as we heard from our previous presentation for the early childhood presentation about a common Brigance assessment for early childhood, and why that's important, and also for federal and state reporting requirements. So there are two main purposes of collecting student data, and it's for continuous school, teacher, and student improvement. Individual student data is vital information for teachers, parents, and students to help them plan and target instruction more effectively. Also, the second part is compliance and accountability. School districts are required to collect some types of data related to state and federally funded education programs like the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA as we know it, the Individuals with Disability Act, IDEA, to show taxpayers that their dollars are well spent and getting intended results. In general, the U.S. Department of Education is forbidding from collecting student data and cannot look at the data about individual students that states collect. Oops, sorry.
So as part of FERPA, there are two data definitions to define data that we deal with here in the district. And they are PII, or personally identifiable information, or directory information. And this first sentence doesn't read very well, at least not in my head when I read it to myself. But basically what it means is if you're not already authorized to receive PII, you need to get permission to do so. Activities such as awards, scholarships, college technical school information, various publications also require the use of some general student data. And that information is directory information and can be shared without parental consent. So on the student accounting, Office of Student Accountability, I believe, webpage, we have a definition for directory information. And there obviously are multiple data points that are considered directory information, including items that are related to athletic and academic achievement. Even though that this is considered directory information, I want to stress the point that the district and the schools use their discretion whenever they get data requests to share data. Just because it's directory information does not mean that we just give it to anybody that wants it. PII, which is personally identifiable information, includes but not limited to student's name, parent's name, other family members, address, personal ID such as Social Security, student number, or biometric record, which would be a retina scanner, a fingerprint, and other indirect identifiers such as date of birth, place of birth, mother's maiden name. I put text in red because there have been questions before why we use student ID for student email if it's considered PII. But based on FERPA regulations, the way it's written, a student ID is considered directory information when it's combined with another form of authentication before you can access any type of educational record. So as long as we are requiring a password or some other form of identifying yourself, that is still considered directory information. PII is also considered other information that when linked to other information can, they use the term, allow a reasonable person in the community who doesn't have personal knowledge of the circumstances to identify that student with reasonable certainty. So a picture of a student doesn't necessarily tell you anything, but if you combine it with their name and their home address, obviously it becomes PII. Or information requested by a person who the educational agency or institution reasonably believes knows the identity of the student to whom the record relates.
Can you give us an example of that, Mr. Garja?
That's a good question. So, and full disclosure, I'm not the FERPA expert, but if someone comes in and we know that they know who the student is, I'm having a little hard time here.
Is it difficult?
Jump in? Yes, please turn your mic on, Trustee Rosenberg.
Ed, wouldn't it be something like a request for transcript or something like that? I mean, they're not about to give you anything unless they know that your mother, father, or have a necessary need for this kind of thing. The university can't use social security numbers or anything like that anymore. We have to take it directly from the students' records.
Let me ask legal counsel, since it is a FERPA issue, and that's...
Well, by way of
according to
example,
what-
NDE, if we have reason to believe that they would have this information, so they might fall into that. Universities,
Okay.
if somebody's applying for school.
Sure. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, so there are numerous laws that potentially govern student data privacy. The most directly applicable to school districts and service providers are FERPA, which we've heard about, and its sister statute, the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, which apply to educational institutions that receive federal financial assistance, and also the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, which applies to operators of websites and mobile applications that are directed to or known to be used by children under the age of 13. So the first one, as I mentioned, is COPA. And COPA imposes requirements on operators of websites or online services who service children under the age of 13. The main requirements of this act are that website operators include incorporation of a detailed privacy policy, acquisition of verifiable parent consent prior to collection of PII, personal information from a children under the age of 13, disclosure to parents of any information collected on their children by the website, a right to revoke consent and have information deleted, limited collection of personal identifiable information when a children participates in online games and contests, and a general requirement to protect confidentiality, security, and integrity of personal information that is collected from children. The next law is the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, and this governs the administration of students of surveys or evaluation that concern school districts. So for example, our school climate survey, that information collected by us would be confidential and protected under this amendment. We also have SIPA, and this is the Children's Internet Protection Act. And this requires that K-12 school districts and libraries in the United States use internet filters and implement other measures to protect children from harmful online content as a condition for federal funding. So as this applies to us, we get E-rate funding from the federal government, and we are required to follow SIPA. We also have AB 221, which was passed in the 2015 legislative session. And this has two components, basically, that tells us we have to comply with federal law, so the previous federal laws that I mentioned. And also the second provision says that data may not be sold, shared, or distributed to other third parties by companies, and it provides a penalty against those companies for intentional or gross negligence if they violate the terms of the contract and do so.
Good afternoon, Board. So, as David mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, federal and state accountability rules require us to collect a whole host of information. NRS Chapter 385 kind of spells this out in detail, and we'd be happy to provide that to you upon your request. The system of accountability in Nevada, the state collects information from all 17 school districts on a nightly basis through the student information systems. They define, I don't know the exact number, but somewhere around 90 data elements that are consistent across all school districts. And you have examples of some of the data elements that are included in our systems up on the board. So there's student demographics are collected. That'd be things like age, gender, race, enrollment, attendance, transiency data. You see it, test scores, graduation information regarding the discipline of students. There's also information collected about teacher qualifications. There's some limited information about the extent to which parents and teachers are conferencing. So there's a whole host of information that's collected through that particular system. I would let you know that all this information in aggregate form is available to the public through NevadaReportCard.com. Annually, we have to provide information to the state that sort of validates what they're going to report, and then that's up for everyone to see. Here are a listing of some of the places within the department where secure information is stored and collected. Infinite Campus is our student information service. This is something that we've had, I believe, in the district for now 8 years. We used to have SASE. Some of you will remember SASE. The state now requires all districts to use Infinite Campus as part of the statewide system. BIG is a data warehouse. It's something that our schools rely on. Ben Hayes, the Chief Accountability Officer, his group uses that system. It collects information out of the SIS and produces all sorts of reports that are used by schools, by teachers to look at how students are doing. It's also a platform in which some customized reporting can be, or analysis can be done by principals, etc. Business Plus, there's business services that we all use as employees. SearchSoft, it's an application that's where people go in and apply for jobs with the district. Office 365 is kind of a newer set of tools that we have available to us. It is something that we can use to access email in addition to just our email system. It's a place where we can store documents. What I like about it and where we're supporting schools is it's a collaborative environment. It's an environment online where people can get together and they don't have to be physically present in order to share information. It's very efficient and it's secure. My PGS isn't listed here. That's another one where we collect information about evaluations, professional development. Easy IEP, this is where we're collecting all information around IEPs, highly secure. That is in the process, but a slow process of being converted over to Infinite Campus. So within several years, all that will be in Infinite Campus. We won't have Easy IEP any longer, I don't think. MAP is a third-party vendor. NWEA is a third-party vendor, and we use MAP, Measures of Academic Progress, and we require that schools administer these tests multiple times per year to students on grades 1 through 9. That information is used. It's used to drive instruction. COGAT. COGAT is an instrument that we use. We do universal testing in grades 1 and 5 in order to identify kids who do qualify for gifted and talented services. It's used in other grades as well. If a student, for example, comes to us in the 3rd grade and they need to be tested, we use it. But that is an attempt, as you know, in recent years to do universal testing. So we cast that net as wide as possible to get as many students into our gifted and talented programs as we can. So there's a whole bunch of data systems. This is a long way to say a whole bunch of data systems.
Okay.
So who has access to all this data? The simple answer is people who have a need to know have the access to do their jobs. So, and this applies to IT staff as well. Just because someone's in IT doesn't mean that they can go in and access databases for no reason. Again, it's granted based on the job role and then granted to the information that is specific to that job role for that person to be able to complete their job. And contracted vendors with signed privacy obligations, so an example of that would be Infinite Campus. If we need to get technical support from Infinite Campus, they have to access the system. We allow them to come in through our network and access Infinite Campus.
Again, Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Dr. Dye.
I think I might have just understood what you said, Ed, but I'm not sure. Can you give me a little more about that access?
So here in the district, people within the district?
With
or
outside of the district?
So again, the example I was using is Infinite Campus. So we contract with Infinite Campus because we use their application as our student information system. So if there's something that we need them to do, whether it's build a custom online registration form, or there's something going on that we need their help troubleshooting with, they can remotely access our system once we give them that access. But they have a signed agreement with us knowing that the data within that system is private. So we have, as part of the contract, built in that they realize they're working in a secure system, it has secure data, and we don't want them to share it. And they are responsible legally as well should something go wrong.
So it's technical assistance on either side. If they have a question or we have a question, it's technical assistance.
Yes, but I would also say we have American Fidelity come in here and do insurance for the district. So in order to do that, they need to access employee information. So they're not here to troubleshoot, but they do need access to data to complete their job and the job that we've contracted them to do.
And these are adults, and so they're aware of this, they sign a release, or there's a process for the adults. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes.
Trustee Gonda?
So since we're talking about the contracted vendors, is any of the contracted vendors we currently work with, are we selling information or is anyone buying information from us?
I'll hold that question until we get to later on. We have a whole section on third-party contracted vendors.
Thank you.
Because I had the same question. I wrote it down. I was waiting. Please continue. Thank you.
Okay, as David mentioned very quickly in sort of his introduction, we're a continuous improvement organization. I like to think of it as a continuous learning organization. In order to do that, we need objective information to help us grow. Data is a big piece of that. And primarily when people think of data, they think of test scores, but it's broader than just test scores. I will say that the state law also requires us to be a learning organization and to use data. For example, in the Chapter 385 that you can reference, you'll find that the district as a whole and schools have to use the accountability information that is collected in order to build their school performance plans or the district performance plans, and those are required annually. We have rubrics that we use to evaluate administrators. We have rubrics that we use to evaluate teachers. You will find in both of those rubrics the requirement that teachers, that principals use data to inform their practice so that they better meet the needs of all students. That's important. Our four fundamentals: core instructional practice, inclusive practice, climate and engagement, multi-tiered systems of support, all of those require the use of data. It is part of what we do. Now, the data that was examples provided in a couple slides previously, that's not all we use. We also use climate information, which has come up briefly in the survey section. We use other qualitative information that's not in the form of test scores, and people put this together so that they can meet the needs of kids. Data is used at an individual level in order to differentiate instructional practice within a classroom. It's used at an individual level to identify a child who requires enrichment. Individual level to identify a child who may need some intervention or remediation. The information is also used to measure growth over time, and that's really where we start bridging over from individual use to aggregate use. So if you want to switch slides. So we also have a requirement and need to use data at an aggregate level to evaluate larger programs. Again, the accountability reports are probably the most obvious sort of an example. You all were familiar with No Child Left Behind and AYP. That's all use of aggregate information to essentially put seals on schools, our 5-star system, for example. We also use it to evaluate programming, grant programming in particular, but also other educational programs. It is almost always something we have to do to demonstrate need when we're seeking grant dollars to support students. The point is that all the information we use within our system is for the betterment of our practices to support children as they grow.
So how do we protect the data? We've talked a little bit about some of the ways. Access control, again, if you don't have the need to see the data, then you're not given the rights either on the network or on the server or in the application to be able to see it. Encryption is basically fancy way of scrambling the data. So if I wrote a paragraph on a piece of paper and held it up, you can read it. If I wrote it in code and held it up, you wouldn't be able to read it. That's really an oversimplified explanation, but that's what encryption does. Secure transit is basically tunneling the traffic between point A and point B so that someone like myself can sit here with a laptop and sniff the wireless traffic going through the air and read your personal information, which is why people tell you if you're shopping online, you look for that little padlock in green. That's HTTPS, which means that the traffic is secured between your computer and their server. Without that, someone like me is sitting out there reading whatever you're doing.
Not someone like
Not me, yeah. Just an example.
Someone with your skill.
Someone that looks like me. Physical security, we covered a little bit of this in the last board meeting with the audit. Physical security is around who has access to our data centers and who could get in there, grab a server, and run out the door with it. And contracts, terms of service, so there's the IT piece of that. We look at the tech specs, the compatibility, will it work on our systems? But anything that we go out and use as a district goes through IT, it goes through purchasing, it goes through legal, and we all look at our independent sections and we look at everything collectively, and we're all looking to make sure that if there's data involved, especially that we're making sure that it's protected and that the company has security in place on their end, not just on ours. And account security. So we do automatic account creation, deletion, management, and we also manage those rights so that people in the right groups. So people in a school can only see student data for students who are in their school, as an example. And it's really called the principle of least privilege. It has other names, but it gives you just enough rights to do your job, but not too much to get in trouble or do something wrong, something that you shouldn't be able to do. Now, this is not an actual picture of our network. There are pieces that are left out because I don't believe in sharing with the world a roadmap for how to get in. But the boxes on the left side, we are our internal network. The network to the right, on the right side of that little brick wall, would be the Microsoft Office 365 environment. The area between those two brick walls, which are firewalls, is the wide open internet. So anything traveling around inside of our network is encrypted so that people cannot sit around and read the traffic, grab somebody's email password or their Infinite Campus password and then log in as that person. Traffic between our network and an Office 365 environment, our Office 365 environment, is encrypted as well, so that people sitting outside of our network can't sniff that traffic, can't get admin credentials, and then do us harm. And that says Microsoft, but it could just as easily be Google. So the same rules apply. So data mining analytics. We perform analytics on data that we already have in a lot of the various systems that Paul already talked about, and probably some others. Those things go into Big, or they're used by Ben and his group, and they work with spreadsheets. There are various forms of analytics that we perform so we can get answers to the questions we have internally and can make good decisions. We don't mine it from other locations. We don't have to. Again, we already have it. Now, per the statements and customer agreements with Microsoft and Google, neither one of them access, mine, analyze, or scan student data. They use different terms for it. Google calls your data proprietary information, which they don't want to access. Microsoft goes as far to say that even when you call them to troubleshoot a technical problem, which is in their data centers, they would prefer that you maintain the access to your own data. They basically don't want to touch it. So the thought that they are in there looking at our emails going through, or looking at Word doc that I've stored in OneDrive, is not happening, not per the agreements. In a way, having data and information in the cloud is more secure than it is here in our data centers. And I say that because they have service level agreements which they have to abide by, which gives them a minimum amount of uptime they have to provide every year, which is 99.9%, which gives them, I think, right around 9 hours of allowed downtime per year. So in order to get to that level, they are staffed 24/7, 365 in every data center they own around the world. We are not staffed 24/7, 365. We have holidays, sick times, vacations, and we just aren't here that often. Even if we have tools that alert us, again, we don't have someone sitting there waiting for something to happen for someone to react to.
All right, vendors, contracts, and third-party applications. So for contracts involving student data, as Ed had mentioned, our purchasing department, our IT department, our legal department all review those. And our purchasing department uses best practices and terms of conditions from the Privacy Technical Assistance Center, PTAC as we know it, from the U.S. Department of Education. And they were formed in 2014 to help school districts around data privacy issues. So bullet 2, vendors can only collect, use, or share PII, which is personally identifiable information, for the purposes outlined in the contract. If they want to use data in another way, they must obtain district or parent permission. So Trustee Gonda, to answer your question, vendors may not sell data to other parties. Our contracts prohibit vendors from selling PII or to use student PII for the purposes of targeted advertising or to create a personal profile of a student outside the requirements of the contract, unless specific parent permission is obtained. Vendors must also destroy student PII upon the request of the district or upon termination of the contract, and defined within the contained timelines, or when the data is no longer needed for the performance of the contract. Again, this is all governed by AB 221 in the 2015 legislative session. In addition, federal law requires that any individual or entity that a state or district authorizes access to its education data must outline in the contracts that we use that student data only for its intended authorized purpose. We must protect the data from further disclosure and or other uses, and we must destroy the data when it's no longer needed for the authorized purpose. So there's many provisions that protect student data that are in our contracts.
Trustee Gonda, you wanted to follow up?
Thank you for that. That does answer my question. I was just wondering if you could clarify on that third bulletin bullet point where it says unless parent permission is obtained. What does that mean? Is there a situation where the parent would permit access? I mean, is that just a...
It's just a disclaimer that's part of law.
Okay.
So most likely, no.
Okay.
We wouldn't do that.
So does that mean, so in other words, in order for that to happen, the vendor would have to ask the parent for permission?
Right. So an example of that for Infinite Campus, and so that's our most prevalent data system, if they were to share, for some reason, data with an outside vendor, they have to obtain parent permission to do that. So in other words, they're prohibited from selling or sharing data outside the parameters of our contract and by law.
Are they also prohibited from using it outside the parameters of the contract?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So following up on that last piece, educational apps and software are all different. Every vendor has their own terms of service, their own software licensing agreement, but there are standards that we look for when it comes to data. And again, it goes through an IT legal purchasing process, and most, if not all, I'm not in purchasing, but I believe that we ask that every contract that comes through be governed by the laws of the state of Nevada, should anything go wrong, and not the state it's written in. There are things that we ask for about data privacy, data destruction. And I'll throw this in because it's not on the slide. A lot of people talk about SOPIPA, which is a California law, and this is a SOPIPA compliant application. It's a great law, and who knows, maybe in this legislative session, Nevada will either adopt SOPIPA or create something equivalent here in our own state. But software companies are not bound by SOPIPA once you cross the state line. So think about your phone today. It follows you around. It can tell you how long it's going to take to drive home from work because it sees where you're sitting and it knows where you live. Applications do the same thing. So they know where you are when you're using them, so they can enable applications to do different things in different places. And I'm not saying or suggesting that application vendors are evil and, they're only going to be good in the state of California. I'm just saying that SOPIPA is not a Nevada law. It's a great guideline. It's something that I think the state of Nevada will move towards, but it's not here yet. This kind of jumps ahead to another slide, but we have a group called TAG, which you may have seen the name of that in WCSD 21. It's Technology Advisory Group. And it includes those groups, but it also includes teachers, principals, students, parents, community members. And one of the major topics of discussion, in fact, we were sitting in this room yesterday, is going through the seemingly endless amount of educational applications, websites, and things that are out there for students to use, or for the entire world, and figuring out how we vet those and continue to give teachers guidance on how to be safe and what things they can use in a safe manner with confidence that they're not going to endanger students or themselves or the district as a whole. Applications or companies like Microsoft, Google Apps for Education, which since we've created this slide is now G Suite. Edmodo, they've also signed something called Student Privacy Pledge, which basically at the bottom of this slide says that they will not share, sell, collect data, very similar to what David was explaining a second ago, that they're not going to use data for any purposes other than its stated purpose, or they are not going to mine data in their possession, sell it to another person, give it to another person, or use it to target advertising to students.
And my favorite words by Trustee Rosenberg, common sense. As Dr. Lamarca pointed out, we want our schools and our teachers to be creative and innovative, and online educational services, so apps and websites, help our teachers do that. They help our teachers teach, and they help our students learn. For parents, there's a thing called Common Sense, and it's a website that rates classroom applications on safety, privacy, security, and compliance. So parents can get information and make informed decisions about potential privacy implications of educational technology in the classroom. So Common Sense evaluates best practices that protects users' physical and emotional health. They evaluate privacy, they evaluate security, and they evaluate compliance with federal and state laws. So we encourage our teachers to check this out and use apps that are highly rated. We encourage our parents to look here for applications. And also, as Ed mentioned, the Student Privacy Pledge, we encourage the use of apps that are part of that pledge.
Trustee Gund?
Is it possible for a teacher to go out and encourage students to use an app that may not be covered by the district's terms of service or contract or anything like that, that could jeopardize student data and require that student to use an app such as that? Or is that...
Yeah, so part of the work, and we'll kind of get into this in our next slide, that our technology advisory group are doing, is reviewing all of the educational apps that are out there. We have a list of about 100 that we know of that teachers use out in the classroom. So we're going through those to make informed decisions about whether their terms of service comply with law. Most of them, in fact, every single one of them that we've come across, they do in some fashion, because they also have to comply with federal and state laws in addition to what we're requiring as a district. But it is possible that could happen. But the guidance we're giving our teachers is to use apps that are only approved by the district.
So back to the tag group. So again, this is made up of people from all across the district and from some people outside the district. The primary goal of this group is to consider technology and technology-related issues from the school perspective. So it's one thing for myself to sit and look at a website and look at the technical specs of it and the compatibility with our systems, but that doesn't mean it's worthwhile in the classroom. It could be the greatest thing ever. It might be a complete waste of time. Our filtering system doesn't evaluate apps based on their quality either. It evaluates apps based on whether they are in a harmful category, which would be hate, drugs, and that's an automated system. But again, it doesn't say, hey, this is a great reading app, you should try it out. So that's the goal of the group, is to really get that lens from the school and the classroom perspective and bring it back to IT and recommend to us what we should be working on and services we should be providing and things that we can help them do in the classrooms. Part of that is also, and there are many subjects we'll be covering beyond just applications, but application approval is obviously an important one, but digital citizenship, grade level expectations, student logins, security. The training and the digital citizenship really are part of E-rate. So we need to provide internet safety training to students as part of the E-rate program. And we have a program that we use as a district, but we are exploring other options, better programs, and one of those is Common Sense They put out a program that many other districts use, and it's free.
Can I add just quickly? I do want to just add one thing. As you know, in the strategic plan, 21st century learning is very prominent within the first goal. There's a couple of strategic initiatives around 21st century learning. Technology use is just one of 6 dimensions, learning dimensions within 21st century learning. So Ed's right. We're moving forward. We are trying to provide guidance to teachers, administrators around what applications support the various dimensions. So we are trying to provide guidance around what you can use in terms of technology to enhance collaboration, to enhance self-regulation, to enhance knowledge construction of students. Recently, just the last couple of weeks at our LTL, which is our principals meetings, we had Will Richardson come as the keynote, and he's talking about technology use. And technology can enhance instruction, and that can be good or bad. If you have bad instruction, the technology isn't going to help. So I just want you to know contextually that this is the reality out there. Technology is part of how we supplement curriculum. We are trying to provide guidance for teachers, and we want them to be helping students learn these things that employers are looking for. And that is how you resolve conflict, how you collaborate, how you skillfully communicate. Thanks.
Well, you kind of summed up this slide nicely, but basically we use data to support student success. So it helps our parents, teachers, and schools, state leaders to improve student achievement so all children can graduate ready for college or a career. We have an obligation to use data to support every student and to ensure our resources are used wisely and to communicate in a transparent manner with our community. So to sum it all up nicely, in attachment B that we've given you guys is just an infographic of how this all works. So we have our schools and the data they collect. We have the district, we have the State Department of Education and the U.S. Department of Ed. And then also we have PII, de-identified data, and aggregate data, which we've all covered here today. So it's just a flow chart of how all of this works together so we support student success. And the last, some additional resources and information as we close out. So we have a website for parents and the public around data security and privacy, links to our student privacy pledge, our board policies, FERPA, and WCSD 21 plans that have all been mentioned here today. So with that, that's our presentation, and if you guys have any additional questions, we'll be happy to answer.
I do have one question there. We've received, as a board, we've received several emails regarding donors or anything, what kind of access they may have. How do they fall? I know we talked about vendors and so on. How would they fall based upon these regulations and rules and so on?
It's a great question, and regardless of funding, so whether it's private funding, federal funding, or our own general funding, anything we do as a district falls within the laws that govern us. So if we receive a private donation for our social emotional learning, for example, whatever curriculum or program that's purchased with private funding, we would still comply with federal, state laws, and it would be our terms of service and reviewed same by IT, by purchasing, by legal. So regardless of the funding, regardless if it's a donation or private, we still comply with state law. And that doesn't mean that the donor or a private funder has access to the student data.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure we have some public comment around this, so JJ, why don't we hear from those and then we'll have some board discussion. Thank you.
Dr. William Tarbell.
Dr. Tarbell, thank you for being here, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Dr. William Tarbell. I had prepared some other remarks, but I'm going to just make 3 points. I'm one of 500 million Yahoo accounts who were broken into recently, received the advice to change my password, and have done so. all of what I've been seeing lately leads me to believe that any connection whatsoever to the internet is about as dangerous as we can possibly get. I'm simply saying at first here that being involved in the level of technology in which we are now engaging is extremely dangerous, extremely. And I'm urging this board to make sure that student data and data of your own personnel are safely kept from persons like him. I didn't hear any reference to the development of psychological or personal profiles and that being stored in your information and or available to be shared. I didn't hear that. And so I simply would say, please, please, at all costs, avoid that type of personal information. And number 3, last point, I noticed on your slide, I'm not sure who put it together, basic tenets of the privacy pledge, is that correct? The word tenant refers to someone who resides in a certain location. The word tenet, T-E-N-E-T, stands for a principle that we hold to. I think you better check your spelling. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Tarbell.
John Eppolito.
Welcome once again, Mr. Eppolito.
Thank you, and thank you for having this meeting. I did want to mention a third-party vendor because my research conflicts with the presentation. Specifically, Edmodo, the third-party vendor that was mentioned in the slides. Edmodo tells us in their privacy policy, remember, Edmodo is a third party that's doing this for free. They are paid with student data. That's how Edmodo gets paid. Edmodo tells us in their privacy policy, number 2, under agents, we employ other companies and people to perform tasks on our behalf and need to share your information with them to provide products or services to you. That conflicts with what these gentlemen said. I'm not sure if they don't know or if it was intentional. I really have no idea why. But Edmodo will be sharing our children's data with others. So will Microsoft. The cloud platform that was discussed was Microsoft. That's not who the district decided to go with. The district decided to go with OnBase. So I don't know what the implications are of that. So PIPA was mentioned in California. Even in California, where everybody is very concerned about this, the Attorney General just put out a 20-something page document warning about these third-party student data mining tools which are used in this district. I'm still very frustrated, and I don't think that the board has enough information to make decisions. Initially, we were going to be part of this conversation, and it just got down to public comments only. Back during the legislative session, Will Estrada, an attorney with the Homeschool Defense Legal Assistance, he talked about how FERPA got gutted twice. These gentlemen mentioned FERPA, but they did not mention that it was gutted twice, once under Bush and once under Obama. And 3 minutes is not near enough. I could talk for an hour just on what they said. And I know you guys are done with this topic, and it's unfortunate because it deserves a lot more discussion. Can I read what he wrote about FERPA? It will take me about probably another minute and a half or so.
Yeah, because if I extend time for you, Mr. Eppolito, I have to extend time for others.
I am the president of Protect Nevada Children, so I know we used to get 5 minutes, but somehow that got shortened. The Family Education Rights and Privacy Act was intended by Congress to do 2 things: protect PII of students and allow parents to access their student records. Unfortunately, the first intent, protecting the privacy of students, has been virtually eliminated through the actions of 2 administrations, Republican and Democrat, in the last 7 years. As a result, the protections once established under FERPA have been virtually eliminated. In 2008, the Department of Ed under President Bush quietly rewrote the regulations governing FERPA. These new regulations reinterpreted FERPA to allow state school districts and schools themselves to share PII, personally identifiable information, from students' records without parental notice or consent.
Mr. Eppolito, I'm going to have to ask you to pause there.
course.
However, you can have someone in your group read the rest of it if you'd like. If they would like to fill out the public, you can certainly do that.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Pat, if you would, just fill out a card when you're done, okay? Thank you. And make sure you identify yourself when you begin.
Any third party?
Yeah.
Okay. For the record, my name is Pat Lynch. I'm also on the Board of Directors of Protect Nevada Children. Okay. Any third party or company designated by the school as a school official, including contractors, consultants, volunteers, and other parties to whom an educational agency or institution has outsourced institutional services or functions it would otherwise use employees to perform, could receive this personally identifiable information on students. This regulation was finalized as 73 FR 74806. It gets worse. In 2011, the Department of Education under President Barack Obama also rewrote the regulations governing FERPA. These new regulations further allowed for the disclosure of personally identifiable information without parental consent to any outside organizations for the purpose of conducting studies or audits of the effectiveness of an educational program. In addition, the new regulations allowed non-governmental actors to be defined as authorized representatives so that they could have access to students' personally identifiable data. Previously, authorized representatives were entities over which educational authorities had direct control, such as an employer or a contractor. Now, an unauthorized representative could be any individual organization whom a school district wanted to assign that term. Finally, the Obama administration's new regulations redefined educational programs to encompass programs not only focused on improving academic outcomes, but also those related to behavioral improvements. The ACLU called this regulatory change a significant new privacy invasion. This regulation was finalized at 76 FR 75604. As a result of these regulations, FERPA no longer protects the privacy and safety of student data. With the rise of longitudinal databases, which are databases that can track the same type of information on the same students at multiple points in time, and data sharing across school district and even state lines, the safety and privacy of our children are at risk. Okay. Do you want me to do any more? Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there other cards, TJ?
Donald Gallimore.
Mr. Gallimore, welcome, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, how you doing? I haven't been here for a minute. Thank goodness for elections. And this has been one of the things that's been on my radar for a long, long time. I'm a board member, Donald Gallimore Sr. of Protecting Nevada's Children, which was formerly Nevadans Against Common Core. And you guys know I've been against Common Core from day one. The worst piece of crap I've ever seen. And then right now, the data mining is first and foremost. It's up front with all of us, with me especially. John Eppolito has been working to make sure that his family is safe and protected, and we want to do that for the rest of our families too. This is I don't know what this is. I haven't seen it, read it yet, but it's a whole lot of stuff that pertains to data collection, and that's why we're here, to make sure that this data stays safe. We understand your point of view where you are looking to use data for tracking or whatever esoteric reasons for your children, but this is it could potentially be a boon, a negative for all the families who don't want to necessarily be tracked. We've asked questions since, gosh, two years ago. concerning Infinite Campus in Edmodo. But we've got third parties that are involved and now fourth parties that can accrue all of our information. You guys don't even know about it or how deeply it is, but we're just looking to make sure that we know how many minor students in the district have signed up for third-party online educational accounts without parental consent, which is, I'm sure, a large proportion. These third parties are paid for, they're paid by information and not cash. We want to know who these fourth parties are, if we can, how they're getting paid, if we can know how they're getting paid, if it's not information, and whether they share our personal data. I don't want people to know when I go to the bathroom. In California, under SOPIPA, these educational companies can only amass a profile for educational purposes. We don't have that luxury language, and we're just looking to see how far we are thrusting our children into this morass of information that is uncontrolled. And so that's what we're looking for, answers for these questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gallimore.
Ms. Martini?
Welcome again, Ms. Martini. 3 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Margaret Martini, Incline Village. It is completely apparent to me what's going on here. It's completely apparent that no one is understanding what the problem is or how it can be solved or any amount of education that has not been brought forth by these gentlemen here. I think that it's been proven from this gentleman, who I don't even know, with his stack of data, but just from the data that I've accrued, and I know that Mr. Ippolito has accrued 100 times more data. And I'm appalled that the presentation here is extremely lax in providing the other side of this issue of student data collecting. And it's appalling. The presentation was appalling. Just in the fact that it only was so very narrow and very one-sided. Very, very narrow. And I just don't think that the cons were presented. I don't think they went in depth into the programs and what these programs mean. And I really think that Mr. Ippolito is very educated in this matter. And this entire school board and these people do not reach out to anybody that isn't in their little narrow-minded tunnel that they're going down to this, let's get technology in all the kids' hands. Well, I'm for that, but I'm not for the process that's happening here. The process that is happening here is just so broad as to what the parameters of protection are. And I think that the lack of the spirit of cooperation with someone who has extensively studied this is appalling for a board, for whoever these people are. And I think that this really needs to be revisited. And I think it needs to be revisited from a con point of view instead of, we've already done this, we've already signed up for this, this is the way it is, and this is the way it's going to be. And the lack of spirit of cooperation is appalling. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martini.
I have no more cards.
Okay. Are there any more questions or any further discussion from the board at this time? On this, let me get my notes.
Okay.
Trustee Rosenberg?
I don't know how the information that is being used, that is being gathered, test scores, where a kid lives, where he goes to school, how old he is, how many siblings he may have. Are there other kinds of information that they're gathering that I'm just not aware of? Do they know? Hold it. Wait a minute. These are questions that a board member is simply asking staff, because as I understand the open meeting law, I may not directly address anyone in the audience.
No, I think
So-
those are appropriate questions for staff to respond to.
Well, for the record, Ed Gracia, Chief Information Officer. I think when you look at technology in use in the district,
Yeah.
and technology that may be in a student's pocket in the form of a cell phone or a laptop that they use at home or a desktop or any other, an Xbox. I mean, the term Internet of Things, I mean, you can go to Best Buy today and you can buy a refrigerator with an internet screen on the front of it. That refrigerator will tell you when you're out of milk. It's the world we live in. The difference inside the district walls, we have agreements with companies. We have a way to fall back if something happens. We have protections built in place with those companies. We have agreements saying that they are not going to use that data in a way that is outside of that agreement. Now, I'm not going to assume how companies get paid. I have my own theories. That's not one of them. I think that, companies are in education because they want to build lifelong customers. I don't think it's because they want to see what I did on summer vacation homework. That's my opinion. But again, we have contracts, we have terms of service, we have laws that we have to abide by, we have data, we have security in place, we have people watching those things. And even as we move forward and we potentially allow people to use personal devices in the network, in our network, that still has to go through our filtering software for the protection of the district and of the students.
I know from my personal experience that FERPA is still very much in charge of what we can and cannot get. I go completely insane trying to find some things that I think are necessary that I simply cannot get into. And that's all there is to that. One of the first things the registrar instructs all of us about is personal privacy. And I can call a high school and ask, could I get a quick transcript on this kid? Because I got the kid sitting right in front of me. No, you cannot. Well, how do I get hold of the transcript? The youngster, with his parents, has to go to the school and ask for it. Then it's given in a sealed envelope just for me. It's not supposed to be given to anybody else. So I've been at this for a long, long time. I care a great deal about the kids and their information. When I was going to school, we didn't have anything like this. We didn't have computers, thank God. We got them now, and they can be troublesome. To your way of thinking, and Ben, you're in this too, have we done everything that is humanly possible to protect the kids' information?
Well, and I think we have to be clear with what it is we even share. Just because we do business with a company doesn't mean we hand them our Infinite Campus database. So let's use Microsoft as the example, because Microsoft is where we use email and it is where we use storage. So user storage, you write a Word document, you save it to your OneDrive, that's in Microsoft's environment. You create a spreadsheet, it has the district budget, you share it in a SharePoint site or put it in your OneDrive, that's in a Microsoft environment. But for a student, they log in with their student ID, They have a password that only they know. Even IT doesn't know their password. We can reset it, but we don't know it. We don't have it in a file where we can read it. There's no other information in the Microsoft environment that they can get. So what is there to mine? They're documents that they've created that they have in their OneDrive folder. Their emails back and forth between their classmates and their teacher. There's no date of birth, no social security numbers, no home addresses, nothing. I mean, in our Microsoft environment, Active Directory, which is where we create user authentication, it's the same thing. Student name, student ID, password, which is encrypted. That's it. The majority of student data lives in Infinite Campus. Big, as Paul was talking about earlier, is a subset of Infinite Campus. So we know we have the data warehouse that people can access from the outside, the data gallery and the online checkbook and those type of things. That's all public information. If you were to grab that server and run out the front door with it, we'd be out $7,000 for a server, but data-wise, big deal. We already let you have it. It's already shared. There's nothing secret in there. There's nothing identifiable. There's nothing personal. All that information stays within the boundaries of our network in our data centers. So again, just because we do business with a company doesn't mean we say, hey, take all of this information and do what you want with it. The need to know applies to companies as well as our internal employees.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions as well, because this also was sent from a question. When we talk about social emotional learning and the program that we have, the SEL program that we have, are we collecting psychological data on students or behavioral data? And I believe someone spoke to that anyway, but those are email questions that we received. Are we collecting that data?
The simple answer is no. Social emotional learning is not something we collect on students. It's an instructional practice. It's something we do. It's not something we collect or profiles that we amass of students. And I don't know if, Paul, you want to add anything?
Okay.
I'll add briefly. We do annually send out surveys for climate and engagement, but those are anonymous. David actually referenced those in one of the laws where when we do that kind of surveying, it's completely anonymous. So while a student or a parent or a teacher may respond to those surveys, we don't collect any identifiable information. So we couldn't tie that to, say, for example, Mr. Rosenberg. We also do collect some behavioral information, and that was listed. That's required by state law. It's something that we need to help support students. So we do collect things like suspensions, minor infractions, major infractions.
But no psychological data.
No psychological profiling.
Except as mandated by a student's IEP. So
right,
a student may receive psychological services from a school psychologist, which we have several in the district, but that's mandated through federal law and IDEA.
Right, and that's kept here.
That's correct. That's kept by the psychologist.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then I believe the other question I had wrote down was, regardless of what a vendor's website may say, they have to comply with the agreement they have with us in terms of them sharing that data or selling that data or accumulating that data for their own usage. Did I get that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I believe Trustee Rosenberg asked that question as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Dye? Thank you.
And thank you for those questions, President Taylor. This is and thank you for I'm not going to call it a deep dive because we could talk about this for a very long time. Thank you for the overview. And given that, there's still some concern. And there are people that are not in this room that have concern about this. And I guess as a trustee, I wonder how we can provide some, I don't know if comfort's the right word, but ease so that parents, family members can be a little more comfortable with how we collect data, how we manage it, and how it's used in the future. Because one of the things we didn't talk about is how is a student's information used in the future when they apply for a college, when they want to enter the military. I mean, these are some questions that our constituents have, and I think that they're worth addressing.
Well, applying for the military or applying for a university is self-selecting. So you are self-selecting into the military or a university and providing your own data. We are not providing data to those institutions.
Let me add to the TAG group that Ed referenced. We're talking about, so part of what we're doing as a district is we're really trying to frame this to provide as much guidance for educators and parents as we can. So yesterday, an administrator that's on the group talked about what you just said. How can we provide information to parents so that they can make informed decisions? And so that is part of what we need to do. This is an ever-changing landscape. TAG isn't meeting, for 6 months and then we're done. This is going to be an ongoing thing, and parent engagement around these issues will be an ongoing endeavor of that group.
Go ahead, Dr. Dye.
It was mentioned several times today, and I've heard it in the past, about parents making a decision for their student to opt out of certain processes, apps, etc. And it's also been said that we don't comply with that, that we even ignore that. Talk to me about that.
So I actually ask for a report on that every week. And since student email went live, as of yesterday morning, we had 441 students opt out of student email across 19 schools, which comes out to 0.06% of our student population. So the way the system works today, and this will change because we're moving this paper form to online registration in Infinite Campus for next year. But as of today, a parent has the option to bring that opt-out form back to their school, and we have set it up so that the secretary can then go into Infinite Campus, check a box, which instantly opts that student out of email. That is one of the automated account management features I talked about earlier. That Infinite Campus system then talks to Active Directory and disables their email. So within a matter of minutes, their email is turned off.
And just to add to that, so the online registration component that Ed spoke to will be changing significantly next year to have to automate that, so it won't be a paper form, so that it, with paper comes the potential for loss. So through Infinite Campus, we'll be building the opportunity for parents to opt out of internet usage, email, or online educational apps.
So what are the pros and the cons of a student choosing to opt out?
That's a good question. I mean, so if you have a classroom of 25 kids and you have 4 or 5 kids who opt out, and you're a secondary teacher and multiply that by your 5 periods a day, that becomes a management nightmare for that teacher, knowing which kids are opting out, having to differentiate what they're doing for the day, which they should be doing anyways. But it is a burden on our teachers, for sure, who have kids opt out and managing that. That would be a definite con. A pro for that would be, security. A parent feels secure.
Trustee Rosenberg?
The first thing I learned when I started teaching was in case of an atomic bomb attack, a fire, flood, or other kind of mayhem, grab the attendance book, then the children, and out. And I don't mean this to be funny. Honest to God, I don't. But that's the first thing that we learned, because without that, everything went to hell. Now we don't have to worry about that because it's done very quickly and it is secure. That part I know. Why are people upset about the kind of information that we're collecting is what I cannot seem to get through my thick head. I don't understand why name, address, telephone number, number of siblings, all that kind of garbage. Okay, your grades. Transcript follows you for the rest of your life. I know, the hard way. But what else is it that we're gathering that people don't want seen? Do you have any idea? Because I don't.
I think that is, it's a personal issue. To be honest, I don't worry that much about my personal privacy. In fact, I just took part in the 23andMe program, so now my DNA's out there. I don't know that I could give up any more personal information than that. My DNA, my banking, my shopping, everything is done online. Now, I will speak to the fear side and the con side, and I say this all the time. The internet is just like a city. I mean, there are parts of the internet that you shouldn't go to.
True.
That's our job, to make sure that no one gets to it, at least while they're within our walls. And that's what our internet filtering is based on. That is why we try and go through the application vetting process to make sure that we are only getting things that are safe and help the students.
All right, one of the things that I was at Worcester, one of my student teachers is at Worcester, and they were doing a project on computer. There's a whole lab full of the kids. Two of the kids had no access because they were trying to get something that they shouldn't have, and it locked them out for a certain amount of time. And it was like, don't do that again. But we have those kinds of things in place.
We do. And we don't lock out their account, but we block access to that site.
If I can elaborate on that, one of the things, and again, David mentioned this, but we went through so much information. For example, up at Incline Village, they're one-to-one at the high school level. They're trying to be one-to-one. And before they would provide devices to students, the students had to go through 3 of 10 modules as part of digital citizenship. The students had to learn how to safely use the information that was being provided. We're looking at this as part of TAG to build in digital citizenship from kindergarten forward. So we're actually, our ETSs and others are working with young children about how do you log in? How do you secure your password? How do you write a password? And kindergartners can actually do that.
Yes.
So we're taking it very seriously. Quite frankly, I have a feeling that many of our students are probably better users of the internet than some of us are, where it came sort of midway. So those types of issues that you're raising, we are taking very seriously. We're worried about things like cyberbullying, and we're teaching kids why you can't do those sorts of things and the ills associated with it, the places you don't want to go.
If I may, just very quickly.
We'll go with Trustee Rosenberg, follow up, then we'll
Very
go to
quickly.
Trustee Rosario, then Trustee Gunn.
I have noticed over the last 20 years a major change in a classroom. I used to walk into a classroom, get things started, and I'd have to scream, "Everybody shut up and listen." I don't have to do that anymore. They're dead silent. They don't talk to each other. They're on the phone.
Well, there is that.
So I always say, have you introduced yourselves to one another? I'm wondering what's happening, to our kids. There, I feel so much better. I can't believe it.
Well, if you feel better, then I feel better.
Yeah, me too.
Trustee Rosario?
Well, I think Dr. Lamarcus, I think what you just said was the most important comment that has been said in this presentation today, that this is a changing world that we're living in, and it is scary for parents. It's scary for me as a trustee. It's scary for principals. It's scary for superintendents and scary for Mr. Eppolito because of course, we want to protect our children. Of course, we want to ensure that our children are safe and we're not causing harm to them. And so the most important thing we can do is empower our kids and give them the tools to ensure that they're safe. I mean, this may be a really silly thing, but when kids, grow up as young kids, they start to go to the park by themselves and parents arm them with the tools about stranger danger. And that's changed over the years and how we even approach stranger danger. The more we learn, the more we know, and how we arm our kids. So, I think what is frustrating for me as someone who's dedicated her life to children and families is to see such an adversarial approach, because if we're truly about protecting our kids, then we need to work together and find solutions. And the internet is not going anywhere and technology is not going anywhere. So how do we work together to find solutions rather than pointing the finger, you're being dishonest, or you're trying to harm our kids, or you're not getting enough information? I just don't believe that. I do not believe that our staff, the three gentlemen sitting here, I believe your presentation was genuine and sincere, and I thank you for it. And I thank Trustee Rosenberg for advocating to have this brought in front of the board and it being supported by our superintendent, because a lot of people would have said, no, we don't want to have this conversation. So we're having the conversation, but the most important thing that came out of this today is we need to give parents the tools to help give their kids the information they need to stay safe. And that's where our focus needs to be, because I can't control what's happening when the kids walk out of the door. And so if this is happening in our schools, it's happening in our homes, it's happening in our offices, it's happening everywhere else. So let's look at this as an opportunity to expand on the information we're providing our parents and the information we're providing our kids.
I'll have a comment from Trustee Gonda in just a moment. Then Katie, I would love to hear from you because I see you being interactive. But I will say that.
And I have a comment as well.
Okay, Trustee Franco, then we'll certainly hear from you after we hear from. After we hear from the student. But I will say, it really wasn't Trustee Rosenberg advocating. It was that we had gotten so many requests as a board. We had enough conversation that I know it's important to us as a board to hear from our constituents and to say if there's something there that we're missing, we want to hear about, we want to address it, we want an opportunity to answer questions. So it's really something that was done together. Way before me? Okay, well, so, but most recently, I just think that as a board, we wanted to have the information. And that's why that was done. So we'll go with Trustee Gonda, and then we'll hear from our student rep, Katie, and then we'll hear from Trustee Frankel, then our superintendent.
Actually, Trustee Rosario summed up almost exactly what I was going to say. In any decision, or most of the decisions on this board, I like to view them as a parent, because I have 2 kids in the district, and one of the decisions that we struggled with, me and my wife, is whether or not to put my kids on the school bus, because there's some dangers on a school bus. I went on a school bus when I was a kid, and there's some things that I'd rather them not see or rather them not experience on a school bus. I'm overprotective. But they really wanted to ride the school bus, and is it good for their social learning development? Yes, and they're fine. They're riding the school bus now. There are dangers still, tragically, but as a parent, just like Trustee Zario said, we're in this age. At some point, you have to start with the presumption that the school district is doing good for children and is striving to teach our children the skills they need. We can't put our head in the sand. We can't say we're not going to do technology because there's a minimal amount of risk. I think that would be a great disservice to all our students. And so as a parent, I am willing to go down that road. If there's parents that are not willing to go down that road, we give them options to join the tag group or to opt out, and that's fine. And not every parent's willing to take these risks, which I see as minimal based on the presentation. So I wanted to thank the staff on making the presentation and making it clear to me that they're making every effort that they can to protect my daughter's data in the district. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gonda. Katie.
I really just want to agree with everything that Trustee Rosenberg, Ruggiero, Gonda said, because I just think that technology is so important to our learning, especially as being a student and always having technology. And so I think that I understand why people from previous generations would definitely be scared about technology, and it is scary. There are a lot of risks with things online, but that's with everything, I think. And I liked also how Dr. Nicolette said that it's like a city. I really liked how she made that comparison, because that's true. Like, there is cyberbullying and there is data mining and all of that stuff that is very dangerous. But I think that we really just need to, in a way, like, let go and see why it's so important for the students.
Thank you, Katie. Trustee Frankel?
Thank you for letting me chime in, and I too want to say how much I appreciate the information we've received today, and actually want to thank Trustee Rosenberg for encouraging it to be brought on the agenda as well, and for all the parent input and community input we've received. As the parent of a recent graduate from the district, and as one of those old people that Katie just referred to, who often has fears of technology, I've had my share of having. I've had my share of concerns along the way about the access of information, and now that my daughter's gone to college, and I realize how hard it is sometimes even for me to get information, I realize that it's often more difficult to get information when you want it than it is not than for others to get it. But having said that, and what I really want to ask about is, well, first of all, I also want to add that the data component of the work that we do is so important, and from the standpoint of the education and academic support we provide our students, as well as holding ourselves accountable to the community and to our students and families for the success of our kids. So I'm a huge fan of data and looking at that to learn and to grow and to continuously improve. I also hear that our technology systems are always continuing to explore improvement and ways to protect the information and data, protect our employees, protect our students, and the information. But one of the things I hear in the concerns that I've heard from the public and heard again today has to do with what others do with the data that we gather that we might share with them. And I appreciate hearing about this privacy pledge. And I know it's impossible for us to really, we hold them at their word. And I think that's part of the fear and the risk that some of us have alluded to, but that's part of life, is having that risk. But I wonder, what, if anything, are we doing to know how our data that we may be providing to other contractors or vendors, be it Microsoft or whoever, is there anything that we are currently doing to verify that, to know that they are or aren't using the data? And is there anything more that we can explore there? So that's just a sort of broad question, and I'm sure it's a complicated answer, but I wanted to throw that out.
You guys, did you get the question? Do I need to? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Frankel.
So this is Ed Gracia, Chief Information Officer. Short of us going to their facility and auditing them, which we can't do, we do rely a great deal on the contracts we have in place and the terms of service, and which is essentially their word. But when we talk about companies like Microsoft and Google in particular, these are international companies which are storing data for everyone from the smallest district in the country to the largest corporation in the world. And they go through their own series of independent audits to become certified to handle this data in a secure manner all around the world. So that is another assurance on our side that they are doing what they say they are doing. There is an external verification that they are not sharing data, that they are not scanning our drives, that they are not selling it to a third party.
And I would just add, our contract provides if they violate the terms of our contract, we could go after them for a breach, and so they're liable for that. Further, as part of Common Sense and the website that monitors all those applications and educational services, they actually post if there is a breach of data by one of the companies. And so they'll fail a company because of that. So, while we're looking at that information, so are other people.
Thank you. You're good, Trustee Franco?
I'm great. That was a great answer. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. We have a couple more public comments, and I'm allowing a couple of people to come back because Trustee Rosenberg asked a question, and there were a couple that got up just simply to address that question. So we will allow that unordinarily, if you will. So, JJ.
Thank you.
John Eppolito.
My name is John Eppolito, and I did want to address Howard's questions and Dr. Dye's and maybe somebody else's. Howard, if you recall, when this whole thing started initially was when we were talking about the SBAC and how the SBAC test is a secret computer test which the kids will be on for 10 hours starting in 3rd grade. And what you didn't like, I think, about the SBAC was the fact that we don't know what data the SBAC is collecting. It's not what the district is doing. It's what the third parties are doing. So it started with SBAC. So the third-party companies, we don't know. And even in California under SOPIPA, the Attorney General is very concerned with what the third parties are doing. And there they have some teeth. We don't have any teeth. We know what third parties will get raw SBAC data. AIR, DRC, eMetric, Crest, Calder, and by the way, UCLA backed out of SBAC, so we don't know who's going to do SBAC next year, at least I don't. AIR is also involved with Washoe County School District's current social and emotional experiment. So AIR not only is getting the SBAC data, now they're getting social and emotional data. And before you say they're not, if you watch the video from Washington, D.C. last week, AIR will tell you that they helped the United States Department of Education create software to obtain social and emotional data in real time. That's what AIR wants. And Dr. Dye, and also the multi-tiered system of support that the district has right now, that tab in Infinite Campus that I brought up before, that is social and emotional data. Teachers, counselors, principals can enter data in that multi-tiered system of support. I've seen it for my children. I make sure there's nothing in there, but we don't know about other children unless parents are checking. Parents don't know to check. Parents don't know to opt out of the email because they haven't been informed. So some of the things that Trustee Rosario and Anganda said, informing parents, educating parents is critical. Dr. Dye, I wanted to answer something you said about opting in to the one-to-one devices. I am getting an incredible amount of pressure in Incline Village to opt my children in to this one-to-one BS that my children won't ever be involved in. And I'm getting it from the local administrators and the local parents who went out and raised over $200,000 to make this possible. You guys let them do that, now they're kind of taking over. So it's hard to opt out. And then one last thing, and then my 15 seconds will be up. Both of you suggested almost, or what I would say, to address all 3 issues is some kind of a forum where it's open and honest and everybody gets to participate. And I would be involved in that if you guys would let me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Eppolito.
Yes.
Pat Lynch.
Welcome again, Ms. Lynch.
For the record, my name is Pat Lynch, and I wanted to address I'll put it in the form of a question. How's that?
No, please don't, because we won't respond, so just address,
Oh, okay. Well, at some point, maybe you will. But at any rate, what information is collected other than name, address, yada, yada? In talking with friends that I have that are teachers, namely, most especially one that's in Clark County, I don't think it would be that different to put she's required to put information about what the child does every single day. They acted out, or they sat on the desk, or they did this, and she stays for hours and hours to do this information. And then it is my understanding that that information is carried on and on and on. And you may want to address this issue, because I think a lot of people do not want that information to follow their children from kindergarten to when they exit.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch.
Donald Gallimore.
Mr. Gallimore, welcome back.
Donald Gallimore Sr., Protecting Nevada's Children. Yes, I've got a couple things that I wanted to say, but mainly in answer to your question, you've seen the information that the students and the parents are to fill out at the admissions part of their school. That includes who their clergy is, some of their medical background, some of the things that they might be have a propensity towards, allergies, things like that. They've got all kinds of other. I think I've even seen where they take their cars for repairs or something, their parents or something like that. I'm not sure what I mean, there are questions on the admission that no child should be dealing with, and so that's something that that's very, very close to what I have fought against, if you will. You know, I don't. If you look at that, they've got not only those questions for admission, but subset questions that go even deeper into the child's admissions process. So these are things that concern me as a parent of children who graduated through the system, and also grandchildren who are in the system right now. And I have grandchildren who are coming in the system in the next 1 or 2 years. So, even though I've been here for 26 years in this community, and I used to go to, my kids went to the McQueen UNR circuit, and I saw an excellent school system when I first got here. McQueen, we were, I believe, 367th best high school in the country for a public high school, and now it's not even on the map. We've got vouchers, we've got things coming through that parents are showing a disdain for the public school system right now. And our charter schools are a mess. We need to get rid of some of this data collection, use some of this monies that have been procured from the last legislative session, and take that money for, and I've mentioned it to Tracy before, Ms. Davis before, take some of that money that was pinpointed for data collection and just put it in school construction. That's going to, let our children grow.
Thank you, Mr. Gallimore.
Ms. Martini.
Ms. Martini, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Howard, for asking the question. I appreciate that. I would like to see a copy of the district's contract with Edmodo to see how different, if different, than the Edmodo privacy policy as stated by Edmodo. So the gentlemen that were sitting here need to provide that, because that's what they've based a lot of their conversation on, is our policy is different. All right, great. Let me see it. I want to see how different it is, because the Edmodo privacy policy is disgusting at best. It just gives free rein to anybody that Edmodo thinks, in their opinion, has access to the kids' data. The other thing, too, is that we spend a lot of time in, discussing all of this data and stuff, and we don't spend any time in parental outreach. None. And I think that really needs to be addressed in a more comprehensive manner, that, you just don't send a piece of green sheet home with the kids in the backpack and say, please fill this out. we have, in the last, I think, few years, added 120 more administrative positions and no new schools. What are these people doing? Why can't they be calling the parents personally? Sending the green sheet of paper home in the backpack is ineffective, and it's been ineffective ever since my kids were in school and probably when I was in school. The parents go, oh yeah, okay, you know. And so you need to do an outreach, a parental outreach, one-on-one, and explain to the parents what's being collected. And the items like the gentleman before me, I'm sure they don't ask what car mechanic you use, but what difference does it make in that particular child how many siblings they have? It's none of anybody's business as to some of these questions that they're asking. You need to target that child. You don't need to target the family or the extended family. You are dealing with an individual student, period. And the questions that are being asked are ridiculously intrusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martini. Okay, hearing no, I'm sorry, Superintendent Davis, I forgot you. I'm so sorry. This will be the last comment on this issue.
Oh, okay. So I think, thanks to the staff for giving their presentation today. It's a hard presentation to give knowing the work that's going on in our district. Technology is scary. I had an opportunity to sit with superintendents from around the country with the FBI around data privacy. And what we learned is the truth. Most of those things that happen outside of school when students don't do the right thing with technology. So as a parent, I'm sure most people in here don't Snapchat, don't check Facebook, don't look at the controls that are provided. And how does one do that? I can tell you that my kid's school district didn't tell me to do it. I'm her parent. I need to control her, and I need to teach her about the society we live in today. When I went to school, whatever happened at school, if you lose it in your memory, it's gone. But now we live in an age where nothing is ever gone. Once the picture is taken, once it's posted, once it's deleted, it exists somewhere. We have to do our due diligence as parents when we hand technology over to students to explain. If you take that picture and post it because you think it is cool, that could haunt you forever. And we have to do that. When we talk about the work around data in our schools, we're talking about instructional tools for technology. We're talking about providing experiences to go to virtual worlds that they would never, ever get to go see. When you hear kids talk about clicking on a rainforest because they got to see some unique things as part of study, it changes the game for instruction. If you think about 35 years ago when you would snail mail a pen pal, it'd take a month to get something back before you could do some of this work. Now kids have pen pals all over the country. They're learning things, and information is much faster, and we have to acknowledge that as we look at where we're going as a society and what we need to do to ensure our kids are prepared for college and highly skilled careers that involves technology. We cannot run away from it. What we can do is practice safety controls, make sure that we have our alignment, as we talked about today, with variety of contracts. But at the end of the day, we still have to provide those experiences. Now, what I'll say is what we would like to do is probably pose tag with the question to 64,000 parents, because there are many parents who think we're not doing enough with technology. So when we talk about the work and the data, then maybe we need to really put a survey question out with tag that look at how do you feel about it to get a true pulse on the community and the students and what they are truly feeling. Because as you know, there are parents who are saying, why don't we have one-to-one at every school? So we could have the great debate in here and be here all night long. But what we really need to figure out is how parents are feeling. Do they feel like, yes, my information has been secure, I don't feel that way? Because if you get that data back, then that's telling you that, yes, the district is doing due diligence to protect their child's safety. Whether you agree or disagree, we have data from parents of 64,000 kids. So I think we will charge that tag committee with generating a question or two to get a pulse on the district as it relates to the safety of their children and technology.
Thank you, Superintendent Davis. And again, thanks to the staff for the information, and thanks for all the community members that came to share your thoughts, concerns, perspectives. I mean, this technology is something that's before us, is going to be before us, so the more information we have, then the better decisions that we can make. But rest assured, the safety, there's nothing more important than the safety of our kids, and that certainly does include cyber safety. So I'm sure this will continue to be an ongoing challenge that's before the board and for the district. So again, thanks for all of that. Last item on the agenda is, we already had all of our public comment. JJ, no additional ones, correct?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Then this meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting? No. Oh, I thought that was a separate, I just called for that. Okay, so look, pause. Are there any additional public comment cards, JJ? There's going to be one, okay?
Just a couple of seconds.
No problem, go ahead.
Superintendent Davis, thank you very much for your comments. I appreciate it. The one thing that I missed in all that is helping to educate the parents. Most parents have no idea what's going on. If you ask 3 pointed questions in a survey, you're going to get back the answers you want. The question that I have is the district going to do anything to help educate the parents? Thank you very much.
JJ, any additional public comment cards?
I have none.
Okay, so seeing none now, the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting will be right here on December 13th at 2 p.m. Thank you, everybody.